a real sports brainiac slash insider slash voice slash personality deathmatch over here. Hello to the founder of the fastest growing sports machine in the Midwest. We have KC Sports Network, BJ Kissel, good morning, and host of the Extra Point Show and Bills Beat and sideline reporter Capaccio. Gentlemen, happy to see you. Let's get ready to hopefully not fumble.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Kay, and good to see you, BJ.
Yeah, you too.
All right, BJ's here. We got Sal here. All smiles. Listen, it's all happy. Things are great. Both quarterbacks without errors this past weekend. They were both disciplined. They managed their team. They both impressed me by showing restraint, both single-handedly or leggedly, can win this game. The Bills beat the Chiefs back in Week 14, 2017, and they haven't held an L since. BJ, the Chiefs need this game to not be that. So let's start with you. I want to know the biggest difference with KC since Week 14 heading into this game, and then Sal, you go.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it earlier in RASHEE Rice. I think as a rookie receiver, we saw him over the last two games that he's played. He's gone for 127 yards and then 130 yards last week in the playoff win over the Miami Dolphins, setting a franchise record for the most receiving yards. There's been so much that's been discussed. I know on your show, we've discussed this as far as the Chiefs passing offense not being what it has been over the past few years, but they're starting to click. We saw their most complete performance last week against the Dolphins. And as you're seeing right there, RASHEE Rice making plays, and that's what they need. And then we saw a lot of complimentary players stepping up and making the catches that were thrown their direction, even though it wasn't a lot of targets. Saw guys like Noah Gray, Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They caught the passes that were thrown their direction. And it doesn't have to light up the box score as long as you're making those key third down catches. And we saw that against the Dolphins, and they were led by a rookie in RASHEE Rice, who's not really playing like a rookie right now.
Yeah, and I would say for the Bills, it really kind of started that week against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think what's happened here over the end of the season when they've had to play for their playoff lives every single week is Sean McDermott on the defensive side has kind of figured out how to deal with all the injuries. You know, after they had weeks 4 and 5, they lose Tre'Davious White against Miami. They go to London week 5. They lose Matt Milano for the season, Daquan Jones for a chunk of the season, who just returned. They started to have to, piece it together, and it really didn't go very well for a few weeks. And then suddenly the Bills, their coaching staff, the players figured out who excelled in what roles. And a big difference was even moving Jordan Poyer down to the linebacker level on dime situations, bringing him a third safety instead of relying on your linebackers who are normally out there in those situations. So I think what's happened here over the last, month or so is really the defensive play calling, the defensive personnel, and the philosophy of how do we deal with the injuries, put everybody in the right position. And I think the Bills defense has really been the backbone of this run over the last 7 weeks or so.
You've got injuries on the Bills side. I'm a little worried. Bernard's out. We'll see if Rasul Douglas, former Packer, can get going. He's limited, and we'll see. And I would say, I'm surprised, BJ, you didn't say Kadarius Toney is the biggest difference.
We're just going to ignore that one right there.
Okay. I like that you chose to give love to RASHEE Rice instead of like this. I mean, the X factor in this game might be the hip of Kadarius Toney in this rematch in Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes' first playoff road game, which is incredible. In the spirit of Dante Hall, I want the X factor, guys. And I'll start with Sal here. What does it come down to, or who does it come down to for you in round 2 of this year?
Well, look, it's easy to say X factor, don't turn the ball over. Josh Allen, we know how great he is and what makes him special. We also know every once in a while that can happen. But I look at the Bills the way they can run the ball with James Cook. And I think the X factor is if they can control the game. They don't have to James Cook run for 150 yards, but if they can control the game on the ground, and the Chiefs defense, their numbers against the run are good. They're not great. There is opportunity to be able to do that there. I think if they can do that and they can force the Chiefs to have to defend the run a little bit, that will open up Josh Allen, the passing game, a little bit more downfield, where we haven't really seen them excel a lot this year, but we saw it a little bit more against the Steelers because of that balanced attack. So to me, that's the X factor, controlling the game on the ground.
As much as I want to take it and talk about the passing offense and not turning the ball over, Bills have won 3 of 4. They have won the turnover battle in 3 of those 4 games that they beat against the Chiefs over the last 4. So for the Chiefs, I think it's the same thing that you were just talking about, Sal. I think it's Isaiah Pacheco. He didn't play in the Week 14 matchup. When you look historically in these games with the Chiefs and the Bills, when the Chiefs have got their running game going, whether it's been Isaiah Pacheco or there was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and we saw him make some impact plays against the Dolphins just last week. I think it's the same thing. I think, Kay, you talked about it. We talked about it on our network as far as Patrick Mahomes game managing or whatever that looks like for him and not turning the ball over, because this defense has been so good this year. Best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had. But again, the X factor for me is Isaiah Pacheco getting some of those tough yards and making it easier on Patrick Mahomes to get some of those third downs that they can convert and get some chunk plays in the running game, kind of take the pressure off a lot of that passing offense that, while it's been better, is still not quite what we were used to over the last few years.
This is the craziest conversation I've ever had. We have the two best, take Lamar out of it, the two best quarterbacks in the National Football League that I just said could single-handedly or leggedly win the game on any play, and you two were talking to me about balance and run game, and James Cook and Isaiah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, what? But that just shows you what is working, and it can't be easy to be an athletic freak, a dominant. There's ego, there's mental, there's physical, and I really credit both of them equally on the restraint that they've showed me, on their runs, respectively. On the dealing with adversity, sure, but like, I'm going to let my number 2 defense carry me, and I'm going to let James Cook and Joe Brady come in here and sort of run and do all of those things. It's super impressive. The vibes are really different, too. So I'm going to start with BJ here, and then Sal, just sort of give me the vibe check. Obviously, this is, when I say that, I mean pressure, too. I believe this is a Josh Allen big game. Josh Allen cannot lose this game up against what is not a perfect Chiefs team, what is not a perfect Patrick Mahomes or, highly dynamic passing game at home. If he doesn't do this, you're never going to slay Big Brother. That's what they will say. For Kansas City, I don't know what the vibe or pressure is around this squad, BJ.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're coming off the most complete victory of the season, that we wanted to see them start playing better into the playoffs. And we saw that against the Dolphins. We saw the offense. And it's interesting because we talk about the drops all season, and the Chiefs led the league in drops, and that the Chiefs passing offense is one of the most complete games, but it wasn't necessarily Travis Kelce's best game. He had 3 drops in that game, but they weren't highlighted as much because the other guys were making plays. Obviously, RASHEE Rice going for 130 yards helps, but Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who I mentioned earlier, who's gotten a lot of heat this year, he caught the third down pass that was thrown his direction. Justin Watson made some plays. And again, Noah Gray made some plays. And so I completely agree with you in that, to me, this game is more about Josh Allen and his legacy of having to beat Patrick Mahomes in one of these games, and that these games being played at Arrowhead, there's kind of that storyline. Patrick Mahomes' first game on the road, there's a lot of pressure for Josh Allen, and a guy that every time he steps on the field wants to prove that he's the alpha.
Patrick would be 2-2 if he hold on. Like he's can't. I mean, not 2-2 in the Super Bowl, but like he's got to get to the Super Bowl. He's got the weight of a dynasty. He's got the I'm the best player of all time. I better get to the Super Bowl and win it.
I think if Patrick Mahomes wins this game, it's another notch in the belt for what he's done. I think if Josh Allen loses this game, it's going to bring up those questions like, can they ever get past Kansas City, because they haven't consistently done that.
Yeah, I agree 100% with everything you guys both said. Kay, you let it out perfectly, and BJ used the right word, legacy. I think this game is actually part of a legacy for Josh Allen. Look, he's been in the league now long enough. He's had these big games, and unfortunately, even though he's walked off the field with the lead, the Bills haven't gotten the job done. That becomes the narrative, right? These guys are going to be tied together. The trade that goes back to 2017, the drafting of Josh in 2018, and then there's Sean McDermott, the head coach who, quite frankly, here in Buffalo, a lot of people have said, have they reached their ceiling? Can he get over the Kansas City Chiefs? Can he beat Andy Reid? This is a legacy game. But even more importantly here in Buffalo, for the Bills fans to go to this game, I'm telling you right now, Patrick Mahomes' first ever road game in Orchard Park, this city is jumping. The vibes are incredible. And I think the mantra here, guys, has been, do it for America. You can't have Patrick Mahomes again, especially if the Texans happen to win, host it at Arrowhead. We got to do it here. You go back to the COVID year when the Bills went to Kansas City and lost the AFC Championship game. I remember after that, Brandon Beane, Bills general manager, said, our goal, we told our guys in their exit interview, we need this game at home. We got to be at home. And they meant the number 1 seed and everything. Here we are 4 years later. They're getting what they want. They need to take care of business on Sunday.
Salyer's plugged in as anybody. We had Gronk on my show yesterday, and we were talking about those snowballs that Pickens was hit with, and he warned, he said what was the kind of stuff that he literally said it on television, the kind of things that are being thrown at Tom Brady and Julian Edelman in post games. Like you Buffalo fans, behave yourselves out there. Let's end it like this. Do I want you guys to show me your best swag surf? I won't do that. Do I want Sal to make the case for Haley Steinfeld versus BJ making the case for Taylor Swift? That's a matchup within the matchup I'm interested in. But no. I think I really appreciated this. Maybe just let's wrap it with BJ. Say something about the Bills that's impressive. Like say something nice about them and why it's concerning to you this weekend. And then Sal exchange the same. And then we're all big one. Kumbaya, happy family.
I will say something nice, but just saying you're doing it for America as if America's rooting against Kansas City. Like Buffalo and Kansas City had this connection of this like just heartbreak in the playoffs. And until Patrick Mahomes got here, we were on the same page. And so as much as everybody's talking about Josh Allen avenging the losses, I'm avenging the 1993 loss where Joe Montana and the Chiefs went to Buffalo and just got absolutely stomped by Thurman Thomas running for nearly 200 yards in that game. But I digress. One thing I'll say this nicely about Buffalo, although Mitch Morris, one of my favorite dudes that I've ever covered. I absolutely love that guy. If the Chiefs don't win, I will be happy for Mitch Morris. Part of me will be very happy for Mitch Morris.
Love that.
But I can say this. Of all the stadiums that I've been to when I was covering the team and following them around, the one stadium that I went to that I was like, this would be a cool play. Like, this is a vibe that I want to be a part of in the stands. It was in Buffalo. It was in a game back in 2014. It was before they've had a lot of the success they're having right now, but it seemed like a great time. I've got friends who are Bills fans and friends who live up there. And so there's not that animosity between, because I think there's a shared history until Patrick Mahomes arrived in Kansas City, and we'll always be connected. And the last thing I'll leave, thank you so much for, again, that trade. Letting us trade up to number 10 to get Patrick Mahomes. We will always be connected in that way.
This is like a celebrity death match. Go on.
This is easy for me. And honestly, I have said since I was a little kid for many, many years, I've said this, and it's a chance to say this right now, okay? So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Since I go back, I watched the Bills growing up in the 80s and early 90s, went to games during the Super Bowl run, had season tickets. And I've always said Kansas City fans were always the most engaging, best fans, most respectful fans that we ever encountered at our stadium here in Orchard Park. And we are connected in that regard. It's Midwestern hospitality. And now I've been the Bills Radio Network sideline reporter for 10 years. I've gone to Arrowhead, don't take this the wrong way, too many times over the last several years, right? And they treat us so well. The barbecue is amazing. It truly is a really, really great fan base. And it is the one fan base that I think is so much like Bills Mafia. So this is a game where you can't really hate the other side too much. You have a healthy respect for them. Yeah, you want to beat Patrick Mahomes. And I go back to those games too. And I'll tell you this, BJ, I remember 2 years before that, Steve DeBerg coming to Buffalo and the Bills beating him in the divisional round. 2 years later, it's Joe Montana. Here we are back again, 30 years later? So it's all come full circle with two amazing franchises as part of the old AFL.
I can't tell if you guys are taking shots at each other or love each other. This is exactly what the Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs rivalry is, and we'll see how those Buffalo fans maybe embrace a traveling Kansas City Chiefs fervent fan base there to the Buffalo area, which sometimes smells like Lucky Charms, as I learned from Deion Dawkins.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We got the cereal plant in downtown. When the wind blows the right way, it's Cheerios, it's Lucky Charms. We smell great here.
We smell barbecue in KC, but they're in store for some Lucky Charms and Cheerios. It sounds like, Sal, we'll hear you on the sidelines.
Yep.
Bundle up, have a blast, and thank you both, KC Sports Network, BJ Kissel. Did a great interview with him. Guys, go there, check it out. I've done 2 so far with him. And Sal hates me, so he's never invited me to be on his show. But
it's the same time.
Listen,
we have to have you on, but you'd have to. I'm doing my show right now. I got a great co-host, Joe. So anytime, you're more than welcome.
I just love that you're doing a show right now and you're not on it.
Yes. I'm going to go back and do that right now.
That is amazing. It is the Extra Point Show. I've never been on it, but whatever. Bills Beat and Silent Reporter Sal Capaccio, we appreciate you both.